Our next speaker is the Assistant Secretary of the Army for Acquisition, Logistics, and Technology, affectionately known as Army ASALT. He is responsible not only for fielding and program execution on the 24 by 2023 Army modernization priorities, but he is also one of the heavy lifters on keeping the Ukraine Army in the fight. Please welcome Doug Bush.
Thanks. Good morning. Great to be here. Pleased to participate in the 15th annual McAleese conference. I get the distinct pleasure of speaking after two of my bosses, Undersecretary Camarillo and Chief of Staff, and before one of my other bosses, Dr. LaPlante. So I will try not to mess this up. Again, pleased to be here and really want to get to pretty light comments. I really value Q&A. I want to make this useful for all our industry partners and others here. So I will, though, hit a few high points that I think the Under and Chief, these build on their remarks. So if I had to encapsulate what we're trying to do in Army acquisition, it's really three things: acquire at speed, produce at scale, and partner with industry while critically also protecting the American people's money. So those three things, to me, are success. Going faster because threats are changing faster, but producing at scale, both because we need things at scale, we need munitions, but also that's better for industry and the American workforce. And then on that final piece, industry, you are our partners. We work together on these things. However, we both have a responsibility to protect the American people's money that we are privileged to get through Congress. That's a partnership. We do it well 99% of the time at least, but it's something we all need to remember that one mistake by one of us, my side or yours, can implicate everything else unfairly. So the real importance of transparency and working together to make sure that prices are fair, we get what we paid for, working with you, is how we get more funding in the future. So I just wanted to add that on that point. So going back, acquisition at speed, briefly. So when I was here last year, I talked about the challenges of prototyping to production. And we're, since last year, we're making progress on that. So I think there's stuff we could talk about. The Chief and the Under rattled off multiple success stories, and I'm happy to go further into those. But how are we doing that? So one is new authorities from Congress, and these things take time to manifest. So the 2016 legislation that the HASC and SASC worked on is really only now, I believe, I could say, fully operational inside the department. It took a while. Previous administration did great work doing the regulatory and the internal process policy work to make those authorities usable. And we've now been able to run with those even faster and faster every day. So two stand out. One is a middle tier acquisition pathway that lets us get to real prototypes faster and get to production more quickly. And the other coming on right behind it, though not less important, is the software pathway. So that one's kind of snuck up on the system, but that is in many ways more radical than the middle tier pathway, but foundational to doing software in a modern way, the way industry does it, the way we have to do it. We have to meet you where you are to do software better, and I can talk about that more. The second part is flexible, rapid contracting. So this is not a new effort. Every administration, every person has wanted to do this. But working with Congress, again, we've gotten some authorities to be able to do that well. Now, before we even got those authorities, we did it well in emergencies. So the United States Army, as part of a big team in the COVID response, was a critical part of that success to acquire, distribute vaccines for the whole country. The U.S. Army, as part of the government team, saved thousands of lives, not just here in the United States, but around the world. That was a contracting win. I know that doesn't get a lot of attention. If you actually look at what we did inside of that, the contracting professionals in your Army did that. However, we want to make that more normal. So that's the next step. So I think we've got two big success stories there to talk about, both enabled by Congress helping us with flexibilities. One is Ukraine, not just contracting to get things on contract for them, but really just as important, getting rapidly on contract for us, for our replenishment. And we got some very important tools from Congress to do that faster. Back to my point, those tools let us go faster, but we have to do it responsibly. We still have a responsibility to protect the American people's money and be responsible with that funding. So Speed while being responsible is, of course, the goal of that rapid contracting. And another one I mentioned is actually counter-UAS, particularly for CENTCOM. So the world awoke to this threat after October 7th of last year, but the Army's been under attack for years in CENTCOM. We have worked very quietly in a lot of ways with industry partners, a whole range of them, to provide on-the-ground counter-UAS capabilities over a number of years, starting before I arrived. That is paying off now in combat. So while we have taken losses, this is a conflict, we would have taken a lot more if that work hadn't been done by my predecessor and then my team since I arrived to get more stuff to CENTCOM, and we have to keep going on that even faster. But that's another contracting acquisition at speed win, in my view. The last thing I'd mention on speed is working with a broader set of industry partners. So you all hear it. We are trying to make it real, working more with small businesses and more with innovative non-traditionals. We've got more paths to do that now. Be interested in feedback. I think we are seeing in some areas remarkable amount of new entrants to the defense space. So UAS, counter-UAS, and software are just three. The chief mentioned electronic warfare. Those are four areas where we know we need to go faster, and we know all of American industry can help, both our primes, who we still rely on for things at scale, and for their own innovative efforts, which are many, but also new companies that come into that space, partner with primes, or work directly with us. All are valuable. Second issue I mentioned was production at scale. So here, I think it's been reiterated several times, the importance of the industrial base, building it, protecting it, and smartly investing in it. So what I mean by that is not just repeating what we've done in the past, but injecting new technology into manufacturing. So American manufacturing is still, in my view, the best in the world. We have the most innovative companies. We have the best people. We can do this. We in the government, when we are working with you to maintain a capacity, especially if you think about it between conflicts, which is the hardest time to maintain those capacities for when you need it, we have to work together to do that as efficiently as possible. So it shouldn't be just mothballing the old way of doing it. We need your ideas on how to build capacity that could be ramped up faster and maintained between conflicts at lower cost, so that we've got surge capacity, but we have it in an affordable way. Now, production at scale is also important, of course, most importantly for deterrence. So as Dr. Plant, I believe, has said, production is deterrence. So I did hear the word depleted used with regard to our stockpiles. I just want to correct, we are not depleted. They are lower in some cases. We are not depleted. So any of our potential enemies might be listening, you don't want to mess with the United States. We are not depleted, and we have a way to come get you if we have to. So just want to put that out there. It is important, though, we have very high standards, and we want to be ready for multiple conflicts. So part of the pressure right now is helping allies fight their current wars. We are doing that, but also retaining reserve capacity, of course, for deterrence of other conflicts. So the two missions together have created a bigger demand signal for munition stockpiles. I think that's good. We now have to work in the department and with Congress to get the resources to make that real, working with all of you to do it quickly in a way that makes economic sense for your companies, not just to do it just for the government. And lastly, surge capacity also means stockpiling. So it can mean stockpiling raw materials. It can mean stockpiling components that are long lead. So there are other ways, and we want to work with you on how to do that smartly. I'll give you one example. So I'm still working on finding out who it was, but we shut down an ammo plant out west in the 1990s. Someone back then very thoughtfully said, that ammo plant made that one thing that's a critical ingredient in artillery production. We should probably keep a stockpile of that. And lo and behold, we're about to use it. It's 17 million pounds of something very special. And whoever that person was, that's the kind of thinking we need now. Think ahead, plan out, war game, what production in an extended conflict looks like, and then stockpile wisely to make sure we can ramp up quickly. So we know how to do this. Again, we have to work together across the department. That's not an Army issue, that's a joint issue. And we need our OSD partners. See Mr. Lohman here today. Hey, sir, I know you're working on it. You got it all figured out. But we need to do that as a department because it's bigger than just the Army. Last thing briefly I'll mention. As you know, what the 25 budget, as the under said, we can't give a lot of details. But I think they've talked about we made a course correction on our aviation approach. I can say that most of that money, almost all of it stayed in the aviation portfolio. So as came up at a hearing I did yesterday, aviation is still a foundational capability of the U.S. Army. We are still robustly investing in it. We just thought that it was time to change our approach to do certain missions in a way that by starting that change now, when the future comes, we are more ready. But that doesn't mean the Army won't have aviation across the force, well equipped with good equipment. And I could talk about what we're doing both with new things that the Chief Neander alluded to on unmanned systems, but also what we're doing in our core manned platforms, which we still need and will need for decades, both the production capacity, but also keeping them modern and fully capable. Across the rest of the Army's acquisition portfolio, last thing I'd mention is we've got a lot of success and we're going to build on that. So we are doing things faster. We got M10 Booker to production in 4 years. We got our new rifle, an automatic rifle, into production in 3 years. We're about to break ground this fall on the new factory to make that new ammunition at an Army ammunition plant. It'll be one of our biggest investments in a single facility for small arms manufacturing in decades. And that's going to come on just in time. We have AMPHI in full rate production, Integrated Battle Command System in full rate production. We are working with our joint partners to make Integrated Battle Command as our air defense kind of JADC2 for the Army. We are working with other services to connect that to their systems. I was just out at Project Convergence, the part that's at Camp Pendleton, and I saw it's a joint exercise. The Army sponsored it, but our joint partners are all there, and international partners. And unsurprisingly, this might be daunting to some of us in the room who are a little older, the 20s and 30-somethings, they will figure it out. Like, we will hand-wring all day about, oh, we can't connect everything, it's never gonna work together. You turn that talent loose, both contractors and our soldiers and airmen, Marines, et cetera, they figure it out. So we just have to give them the venues to do that. It's important to remember, no one's more innovative than the U.S. military when we're given freedom to actually experiment, and then when we go to conflict, no one's more innovative than we are. So we've got other things, as you know, and a couple of things I did want to mention that are still foundational. The Chief alluded to it. U.S. Army is a ground force. That is still our number one thing. That is what we do. We defend ground and we take ground from people who don't want to give it up. So to do that, you still need, for example, infantry investments. We are not losing sight of that. We've got better night vision and ENVGB fielded. The new version of IBAS, right now testing is looking good, and if we have success, we're going to go into production in FY25. The new weapon I mentioned, the 6.8 millimeter, early returns on that in terms of combat effectiveness at range and accuracy are stunning. That increase in infantry capability in the hands of a trained unit is going to be game-changing. I know people use that term a lot, but I think this one's real, and you should talk to the general officers who are the Army's experts on this, of course. And then lastly, two things that are still full steam ahead are our rebuilding and dramatic expansion of air and missile defense capability across the board. We're seeing how important it is in Ukraine, both strategically, defending cities and defending civilians, as Ukraine is doing with our systems, but also tactically, with all the way from counter-UAS to other systems that protected medium ranges. We have to do all of it again. We knew how to do it before. We had a great system in the Cold War. We're just making it bigger and newer now with all new capability. And finally, long-range fires, all that's still on track. All that's going very well. It's a big investment. It's a lot of money. The Army is getting back into big missile business. So it is something we are going to do to contribute to the joint force, but we need to keep working with you to do it in an affordable way. But so far, cautiously optimistic there. And I would be remiss in not mentioning, yeah, we need that 24 budget, and yes, we need that SUP really bad. The U.S. Army really needs that to help the Army replenish itself and prepare for the future and increase deterrence. So that funding and that supplemental, a lot of it is just for the Army. That's what it's really about. So we're going to help Ukraine, but we have to help ourselves too, and that's where a lot of that money goes. That'll translate into jobs and production all across America, which is a good thing. And I'm cautiously optimistic we'll get that. So happy to take your questions, Jim.
Sure. We've got 15 minutes. Can we start with you, both of yourselves? And can I throw out the first one, sir?
Yep.
Industry besieged me to ask you about fixed price contracts, fixed price development? How do you make those decisions about fixed price development, cost plus development, and just a general setting of the risk setting to industry? So if it's okay, could I throw that one as the first one out, sir?
Yeah, sure. In general, I have a great aversion to fixed price development. I've never seen it work. I shouldn't say that. Someone here made it work. It rarely works. However, we have other ways. So there's hybrid ways to bound cost risk on development or prototyping efforts while not being in a completely cost-plus environment, which, as attractive as it is in some cases, and we still use it sometimes, Congress has a lot of questions about that. So we try to use it only where we have to. But there's a good in-between balances to do development in a way that doesn't put industry at unnecessary financial risk, but also bounds the government's risk when we're trying to do something new that might not work. Production is different, as Mr. Hunter eloquently said. Production, industry knows how to do production as long as we don't change requirements on you and we give you time to adjust production lines and your supply chains. Industry knows how to do fixed price production very well and very profitably. So that's a good thing. So I think that would be my answer. Broadly speaking, yeah, fixed price development, I'm not too interested.
Well spoken.
Hi, thanks. I'm Doug Greenlaw from Research Innovations Incorporated. The Chief of Staff talked about the significant progress in long-range fires. You just mentioned it as well. I mean, obviously, key capability. Is the Army moving fast enough in fires coordination and decision-making for Army, Joint, and Coalition? And I think you might have seen some stuff out of Project Convergence.
I did. So in the meantime, we are leveraging, for example, with mid-range capabilities. Those are Navy missiles we're launching from the land. We're using the Navy's comm systems. We didn't reinvent the wheel. The Navy has a way to coordinate clear fires for those weapons. At first, we're just using that, which I think was very thoughtful. This was General Thurgood, when he was at head of RICTO, came up with that approach. And I think that was absolutely the right way to do it fast. Now, we can do better than that. So what I saw when I was out at PC was connecting that Navy system, in that case, to the broader system of how to work together. So yeah, we are going to have so many long-range weapons across the Joint Force that if we don't use them efficiently, which means doing the targeting, the execution of the mission, and the BDA efficiently, we'll run out faster than, we want them to run out of targets before we run out of weapons. So that will be important. I think the Army, though, can build on. The Air Force and the Navy are already pretty good at this. So they already have dispersed very long-range strike complexes with comms behind them. We can attach to those for very long-range things. Now, shorter range, for us, long-range fires can be like 70 kilometers. That's an Army issue primarily. And there, we are building off of our foundational systems we have, but we do have to make them better and more responsive. But we know how to do that. It's as the under said, connecting the pipes, so that can just be done more quickly. We are seeing amazing things in Ukraine, for example, on how you can do that with pretty low-cost systems, using a lot of commercial comms to rapidly connect your ISR platforms with your shooters and then the BDA loop. Eminently doable. So I think the Army will want to do that for ourselves in a way that, of course, we're going to have a lot of munitions, but yeah, we got to be efficient.
Hi, Doug. I wanted to ask you a question based off of what General George said in terms of the commercial tech is moving faster than military tech, and it has applications. And I know you believe and embrace that, but I wanted to talk a little bit about commercial systems and processes are also moving faster and have progressed much faster over the years in terms of the relationships and how to eliminate non-value added costs and steps, and in the relationship between, I'm going to say, between the government and industry. So what do you see happening there that, that kind of, because, that kind of gets that moving in that direction in a continuous kind of improvement way?
So, good to see you. That innovation in the American private sector, we rely on it. We should never be telling industry exactly how to produce a weapon. We should be working with them. We have to be aware, and we have to have the right data to justify costs, as I mentioned, being a responsible party with the American people's money. But we need to be talking more, we need to be listening more than talking in those conversations. I think broadly that's happening. I think the Army certainly, we do produce some stuff still ourselves. If you look at our organic industrial base, those are kind of factories that we still oversee industry running. But I've tried to really open the aperture even there to doing things differently and more affordably the way industry is doing them. So I think the big thing we can do at my level is provide my team top cover to be innovative there and work with industry and not create risk aversion, even if something does go slightly wrong. I think that's happening. I hope it's happening because that's certainly my message to my team. I'm a big believer in the private sector, and that's where the innovation lies in this country, and that's a good thing. But we just have to kind of get out of the way sometimes while being responsible with people's money.
Mr. Bush, old soldier Pat Donahue, working for Lockheed Martin now. We heard a lot today about the Army needing new buying methods. Everything from, just heard about capacity bins from the chief, and we talked earlier today, as a service, subscription models, IDIQ contracts. Do you have the authority to do this, and do you see this being applied to both software and hardware?
So we do have the authorities. What we'll have to do, though, is in partnership with Congress, make sure they're okay with it. And when we're doing it somewhere new, we have to work with them to make sure they understand what we're doing, they see we're following the rules. For example, going to as-a-service model moves you over to more O&M money and out of procurement dollars. So, and it's not a free lunch, right? If you're going to do more with that O&M, it means there's other things in O&M that you have to think about the trade-off. So yeah, I think broadly, yes, we have the authorities. We just have to do it the right way and communicate it well. And where Congress has a different view, we have to respect that and work with them on a way to hopefully get to yes. And sometimes, though, they may want us to do it differently. So I think it's just a good comms effort. I think Congress and staff, we work with members and staff, they recognize that those buying models are used more broadly in the private sector. So it's not crazy to think the government should do it a little bit. One thing I would mention, though, on those models is we still need to be able to, one, justify we're being responsible, to back my point, but also that those models work for industry in a way that's two-way street. It's got to be profitable for industry, and it's got to be in a way that we can demonstrate we're not, we're getting charged fair prices. So that might require a different data conversation about how we price things and work with industry to show that, but we're open to those ideas.
I think you'll find a lot of support from industry by approaching these new ideas. And if I can follow up real quickly on what the under said about the gap analysis you've done in the Army, do you think industry knows what these gaps are so that we can anticipate and invest our IRAD in the areas you need well beyond the requirements process and programs of record? Thank you.
So I'm going to qualify and say yes, because what I hear from industry, what people come to my office and talk to me about are all things that generally fit those needs. I mean, hopefully they're picking up those words. We're communicating well through our industry days at my PEOs. I hope those are effective. That's one of the reasons those are there. So I believe so, yes. I don't have really any one area where I would say there are no ideas and there's nothing in industry to address a gap. It's just arranging the money with the authority and the timing to actually go do it. Honestly, if we have one gap I worry about mostly, and I know it's been said, is budgets. We have to have budgets on time, reasonably on time, so we can just actually buy stuff. But in the meantime, we do have to work with industry to make sure we don't end up in a cul-de-sac where we have no options, even if budgets are a bit delayed. So I think broadly, yes. But if people think otherwise, I'm happy to take that feedback to find out where we can do better.
Because it came in online. So just so everybody knows out there, if you're watching online, you can get questions in. I do apologize for poor choice of wording.
No,
I take that back. The Pentagon stated in the past that we're working diligently with Raytheon right now on the NASAMS project. And so it's to expedite, get it into country, get it to the Ukraine. How successful is that program? I mean, if you can tell the number of batteries that you pushed in, that's great. If not, I understand.
So I can't say exactly, but that's an example of, like I said, the rapid contracting, in particular, approach we took with Ukraine. And lots of companies have performed really well, not just Raytheon, but on that one, Raytheon working with their partners, because it's them plus some others, did a great job. It's in country, it's saving lives right now, helping defend Kyiv and other key places against, shameless, attacks on civilians, frankly. So there's nothing more important than that. That was an example of take something we know works, find where that capacity is, and go really fast, working with industry to get the money front-loaded so industry can do what it does best and does its own financing arrangements and changing its workforce and adjusting their processes to do things quickly. We never want to be, we try not to be, sometimes we are, the long pole in the tent or the slow part, but we want to be the fastest part.
You have 2 minutes left.
Right.
One and two.
Thank you. Sorry, John Harper with Defense Scoop. Can you give us an update on where things stand with the Dark Eagle hypersonic weapon? Has the Army and its industry partners fixed the issue with the launcher, and when do you anticipate the next operational test will happen and when it will actually get fielded?
Sure. So that's program is a partnership with the Navy. So when we had our test challenges last year, the team came together. It was then Mr. Stephanie and now Honorable Gurdon. And really our 2 3-stars got together, came up with, working with industry, a revised and a bit deeper, more detailed test plan. So it's a little bit more like a normal test plan where you do subsystem testing and you build your way through confidence to a broader test. So our goal is this summer to get back to the range, both at the advanced subsystem level with the launcher, but also with the missile. So far so good. I think we are understanding where the challenges were. One thing about that program, we were trying to do a new MRBM for the Army in 4 years. Right, normally that would take like 10. If we end up taking 5, even though we hit a bump, still pretty good. But we're not there yet. I'm not going to declare victory. Our industry partners have been very good at working with us, and their engineering expertise combined with our folks, I think we're going to get there and we're going to make it work. But a lot of work this year and a lot of proof of progress to come this summer, we hope.
Last question.
Thank you, sir. Mike Katarski with Arena. It's easy to get our head around systems. I was wondering, and this might be a longer than a minute requirement, but if you could briefly maybe talk about the energy priorities. I've heard a lot about nuclear, small modular, obviously the electric debate. If you could just provide some context around Army's priorities in that area.
So thanks for the question. The Army, there's kind of 2 sets there. So I will leave aside the installation aspect. The Army has the most installations in the DoD, but that expertise is not me. That's Rachel Jacobson, our Assistant Secretary. However, I can talk a little bit about the operational side of that. So the Army's goal with any demand reduction investments, and that's the way I like to phrase them, is the operational improvements they will create in the force. A more effective force that doesn't need as much logistic support or can just operate better and more effectively. That's why we're doing it. It's not just to save energy or to shift to the greener things. It's a better Army. So that's one foundational, and everything gets looked through that lens. So where are we doing that? For us, in my area, the biggest area is in vehicles, for example, definitely now already moving to hybrid technology to reduce just fuel demand across the force, all the way up to, we hope, the M1 tank as well with our new M1E3. But also across the force in a million little ways. So even better generators. The Army uses a stunning amount of fuel just running generators. If those are 20% more efficient across the whole Army, the savings are staggering and more efficient. And the tech is out there, so we know it. One thing we are interested in working with industry is you can talk a lot about electrification of platforms or making them hybrid or even electric, but it's bringing the charging infrastructure to the battlefield in a way that is reliable, works in a huge range of temperatures, for example. I mean, thankfully, the American people don't often have to drive their cars around when it's negative, 50. Well, we have to be able to do that. So, and our systems have to be capable of the crew being safe when the vehicle's attacked. So it's that next step of making electric, in particular, battle ready, and then also bringing the charging infrastructure to the field in a way that is reliable and we can count on it. So I think those two things are happening. The technology is there. There's great work being done. We're doing a lot of experimentation on that in little ways to inform those bigger decisions. But you know, the Army looks at it as kind of the whole system, not just the electric thing perhaps at the end. It's really what's behind that. But I think in the meantime, hybrid is definitely where we're going to go fast as possible on the operational side. Now, nuclear is really, like I said, a installation question, so sorry, I'm going to dodge that one. I don't have plans for a nuclear-powered tank. Just to be clear.
Mr. Secretary, thank you for your time. It's been very enlightening and enjoyable, and we appreciate your attention.
Thanks.